I'm here today with Tim Wynne-Jones, and we are here to talk about his new book, The Starlight Claim, for which he has just received the John Spray Mystery Award presented by the Canadian Children's Book Centre. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's very exciting. I'm really pleased.
Well, this book is a kind of a sequel, isn't it?
Yeah, it is actually.
And it's sort of a sequel to your book, The Maestro, for which you won your first Governor General's Award 25 years ago.
Yeah.
What took you so long to write
I was
the sequel?
afraid you were going to ask that. It is it's kind of an intergenerational sequel because for years, people who read The Maestro, to this day, people will sometimes say, well, whatever happened to Burl, who was the 16-year-old protagonist in the book, and whatever happened to his horrible father, because the Maestro ends kind of a little bit ambiguously, and so I've often thought, well, I should write a sequel because I thought everybody got from The Maestro that everything worked out okay for Burl, but I don't see what happens. So time went by, and actually a lot of time went by, and when I began to think about an idea for a sequel, it was like, oh, Burl is old enough to have a kid of his own now. Mm-hmm. And so, in fact, that's exactly what happens. Nate, who is Burl's son, is the same age as Burl was when he had his adventure in the wilderness, and he goes off into the wilderness for a very different kind of adventure. So you do find out what happened to Burl, and the father makes another appearance, the evil father.
So there's a kind of a timeline that exists in real time.
Yeah.
Well, and both books take place in the boreal forest in northeastern Ontario, at a place called Ghost Lake. Now, is Ghost Lake a real place?
It's a real place, but I've given it a fake name. It's a fantastic northern lake. And in the book, I describe how you get there. You can't get there by road. You can fly in, or you can, on a float plane, or you can take a train and get off and walk through the wilderness. And the famous Bud car, which leaves out of Sudbury, I've used all of that in the book, but I've given fake mileages and fake towns along the way so that nobody will ever find the Ghost Lake, the real Ghost Lake, which is a very special place. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So when people are talking about fiction, they often talk about three different kinds of conflict in fiction. We talk about man against nature, and man against man, and man against himself. And I would argue that you managed to incorporate all of those different kinds of conflict in the Starlight Claim, which is not an easy thing to do. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it is interesting because, in fact, for a long time I had the man against nature thing figured out right away. I knew that if I was going to go back to Ghost Lake, and by the way, part of the reason I ever wanted to write a sequel was just to use that wonderful place again in a story. And so I thought, having been there in the winter, I thought it would be great to have Nate stranded there in the winter, which is incredible up there. So that was Man Against Nature. Man Against Man, I decided that he was going to run into some people there, that he was the last thing in the world he expected. Fine, got that. But that idea hung around in my head for 4 or 5 years, I think, really. And it wasn't enough. I just felt that I knew why he was going. I could make enough motivation for him to be going up to this place in winter. It was something that he'd wanted to do, and his dad said when he was 16, he'd be allowed to go up there with his friends. And then something happens that his friends can't go. But I wanted I wanted something deeper, a deeper motivation. And then I realized that, and not by myself, I had help from you, in fact. let's not pretend otherwise. Sitting on the porch, it's right out there. We were talking one day, and I think I was talking about this very subject. And it was like, yeah, but the real Ghost Lake, which you know as well as I do, there's a terrible tragedy that happened there a long time ago, before we were ever there. But it certainly happened to a very good friend of ours, the person who introduced us to Ghost Lake. And it involved someone who had been his best summer friend. And it was a terrible tragedy. And this really happened. And you said, we were sitting out in the dock, and you said, well, how would that affect Nate? You're a fictional character. And it was like, oh, that's the missing link. It's not just going to be a Hardy Boy story. Oh, there's bad guys here. We will solve this. I won't need the police. I mean, that just doesn't interest me. I loved the Hardy Boys when I was a kid. It doesn't interest me. But he's on a quest. And he's on a quest. And it's dealing with his friend's death, and how he's not able to deal with it, how he needs to resolve this sense of loss, but also this sense of guilt. He feels somehow that he is responsible for what happened. The way people do when they think they could have done something. I could have stopped that from happening, which is a very powerful motivation. And that was the missing link. So until I had that third kind of conflict, the book just didn't see it. It just was going to be an adventure story. I like adventure stories, but I like adventure stories where there's a real emotional impact upon the central character. And so, so that's why that came up.
It occurs to me, listening to you, that this book, maybe of all of your books, has more resonance with real life, real life stories than just about anything you've written. And yet, obviously, fictionalizing things, but starting from that core base of real lived experiences, and then going from there. As a reader, I would suggest that's one of the reasons why it is so powerful, because it's coming from these real stories, real places, but with the real pain and motivation that you've put into the characters.
Yeah, and it was interesting to me because I never knew this person who died, that was the friend of our friend. And so, but I needed to create him. And I created a character, Dodge Hobick. I created a guy that was like people I knew when I was young, who was a daredevil. He was sort of fun to be with because he just, everything went into, high gear around him.
Well, I'm really glad you brought up Dodge, because it's a really deep relationship, but it's a complicated one. Can you talk about that a little bit? I can. Dodge is, in a way, well, they're thrown together, right? They end up having cabins at the north end of the lake, the two families, and the families get along fine. And there's a kid roughly his age, but he's a brash kid. He's kind of wonderfully full of adventure and mischief, and that is not who Nate is at all. Nate is his father's son. He's practical. He's careful. He's really, his father is a real outdoorsman, a real woodsman. He's not somebody who does things foolishly, and he wants his child, Nate. He wants him to know how to be in the woods safely, and Nate is incredibly responsible, but he's not really imaginative. He's innovative if need be. I mean, and as you find out in the book, there's many ways in which he can handle the situation, as dire as it is. Because he knows what he's about, but he lacks the daring that Dodge brought into his life when they were young. And I should would you read
something.
it? Yeah, I was just going to say, read a little bit.
Yeah, I'll read a little
Fantastic.
passage. Actually, there's a passage that that I think will help to explain this. This is throughout the story there are flashbacks because he's up at Ghost Lake, and in fact he's hiding in the Hobbits camp, so he's constantly memories are coming back, and in that way we learn about this friendship. So anyway, I'll just read one of those flashbacks. What are you doing with that? Dodge holds the Remington to his shoulder like a revolutionary Minuteman and peers along the stock. We're about to rid Picnic Island of the menace that has afflicted our summer vacation. You're crazy. What are you talking about? And point that thing somewhere else. Nate steers the muzzle away from him. You know what I'm talking about. Nate sighs. He has an idea, but that isn't the point. Dodge, you're not supposed to be playing with that thing. It's a gun, Nate, not a thing. You know what I mean. Dodge gives him a sour expression and lowers the weapon. Listen, our mothers have taken my little bro down to Sanctuary Cove. They won't be back until supper. Your dad won't be back until tomorrow, and my dad is back in Sweet Home, Indiana, selling shit. This is our chance to do something for our people. Make Picnic Island great again. I'll stop there for a minute and jump. I'll jump to, so they're going to canoe. The only boat available is the canoe. And it's quite a long way to Picnic Island. And all Nate can think about is like, if they tip the canoe, and that gun will be gone. It'll sink down into the depths. Anyway, they get to the island, and I'll just read why they're there. There is a huge wasp nest hanging from a branch high above the picnic table. The table has been there forever. It looks as if it could fall apart any moment just from the number of names etched into its mold-mottled surface by who knows how many pocket knives. It's a communal place, a lunchtime stop-off for fishing parties. There's even an improvised filleting table suspended between two trees to clean fish for a fry-up. The North Enders have had to avoid the picnic spot all summer. Be ready to run, says Nate, looking up into the tree at the wasps circling their monstrous gray home. It's grown bigger, like some huge, evil piñata. We've got the lake 20 yards away, man. We're good. Dodge is aiming the shotgun. Yeah, well, just don't miss, says Nate. Oh, ye of little faith, says Dodge, and fires. The noise is huge, and he doesn't miss. The hide explodes into the kind of confetti you'd only see at a ghoul's wedding. Nate runs like a scalded cat, only turning as he reaches the water's edge to see Dodge, still standing by the picnic table, watching the hive dust fall like a filthy snow and the whirling tornado of angry wasps. Dodge, run! And finally he does, stooping to drop the Remington onto a bed of mossy ground, laughing his fool head off, diving into the lake and going way under, Nate by his side, two dolphins. When they surface 50 yards out, they tread water, watching the scene on the beach. It's going to be fall by the time we can get the gun, says Nate. Maybe, says Dodge. But it was fun, wasn't it? And Nate, recovering now, safe and distant from the buzzing chaos of those angry Vespids, has to nod. Yeah, it's fun in a heart-stopping way. Dodge kind of fun.
That's a perfect section that shows how Nate needs Dodge so much to be able to go through what he's going through. And even in when he no longer has Dodge, but he has him in his memory, he keeps calling on him to give him the strength.
Yeah, and one last thing, just we're running out of time, is that I needed that to interweave into the story the importance of Dodge in Nate's life, even though it was a love-hate kind of relationship, because in the end, it's Dodge who helps to save his life. So
yeah, okay.
I want to read it
again. Me too. I don't think I have time for any more questions. We've run out of time.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. It is always a pleasure.